Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the African Football Report on the African Five-A-Side podcast. Today I'm joined by, I think, one of the youngest, best young talents in African football journalism, in world football journalism, I should say, Neel Shelat. Neel is in Morocco at the moment covering the Wafcon, so I wanted to make sure we spoke to him about the quarterfinal action. Neel, so far, how's it been covering your first Wafcon?
Yeah, it's been great. I just arrived here a couple of days ago in Morocco, and yeah, it's been a great experience. So I was at the quarterfinal of Morocco, the home team. So it's an incredible atmosphere. Stadium was absolutely packed. Fans were like cheering with every ball, every pass. So it was a fantastic atmosphere and a good game as well. Thankfully, the first two quarterfinals, not so much the first one. Like I think Morocco Mali, I got the best game. The rest weren't really great games. But obviously, I think we've got a really exciting slate of semis coming up as well. So really excited to see what we get in the next week.
Yeah, I think all of the favorites actually ended up progressing. So I think Nigeria were favored over Zambia, Morocco over Mali, Ghana slightly over Algeria, and South Africa over Senegal. So no real surprises, and that really continues the theme of sort of expect the expected that we've had throughout the WAFCON. Just to go over the quick score lines before you go match into match. Nigeria trounced Zambia 5-0. I think we're expecting them to win, but not by that margin. Morocco defeated Mali very convincingly 3-1. Algeria and Ghana played out a 0-0 draw. I think that was a little bit predictable. Ghana advances on penalties, and then South Africa survived a very physical match versus Senegal, and they also advanced on penalties. So let's talk about the sort of most high-profile match, Nigeria versus Zambia. Um, I think coming into this match, we had called the Super Falcons a little bit disappointing, shaky, and then in the most high-profile match of the tournament, they win 5-0. In your opinion, how did they do it?
Yeah, I mean, it was obviously, as you say, compared to the first three games of the group stage, it was like a completely different kind of performance, almost like a different team at times. Just the way they played and the way they were clinical. But I mean, I would honestly attribute like much of the scoreline to basically just the early goal that they scored. Of course, like a set piece with just over a minute on the clock, because the thing with Zambia is, and I like many people have spoken about this, even some of the coaches is they're still very reliant on a couple of attackers, right? Like I mean, obviously we know how good Barbara Banda is. I don't need to speak about that, and Kurananji as well has been giving her excellent support throughout the group stage. But I mean, it's just the nature of their squad, to be honest. Like I wouldn't really pin it on the coach or anything. I mean, when you look at their squad, you can clearly see that okay, these two are like the standout players, and especially in defense, there isn't as much quality, right? I mean, they still do have a few like fellow attackers and midfielders who do play in the top leagues. In defense, they don't really have that much. So when you sort of put that all together, what you get is a team that can really hurt you in like open games and in more kind of transitional games. We saw that in the opener against Morocco, right? I mean, just a minute in, Banda scores, and they had chances to score more as well. Obviously, it was 2-2 in the end. But when you can, if you get an early lead against them, and if you can kind of try to close the game down, sit back in more of a settled block and not really stretch yourself, that's when they really struggle. Like in this game, I felt Zambia showed like no real ideas of creating anything. Like ultimately, they tried to play out from the back, but didn't really go anywhere with it. And ultimately, they just had to resort to like sending long balls for like Banda to chase and make something out of nothing almost. But the Nigerian defense obviously dealt with that well. Nadozie we know is excellent, all round keeper. Whether it's saving penalties, sweeping, everything. So she did a good job. And with that, I think that's pretty much where the game was almost decided for me. Once they got that early lead and once they were able to kind of close everything down, yeah, that didn't seem to be a way back for Zambia. And of course, they did score quite a bit, yeah, especially going 3-0 up at halftime and then adding a couple in the second. But I mean, like the score line, I would still say was a little bit flattering to them because it's not like they created that many chances. They were just very clinical, which is obviously good. But like I wouldn't say that all the issues we saw in the group stage were solved for this game. I think it just panned out in a way which worked really nicely for them. But I still wouldn't say that okay, now Nigeria look like by far the best team in the tournament after this game.
As much as I agree with that statement, I also think we can say that Nigeria were quite clearly the better side. I mean, if you go player 1 to player 11 in all
For sure.
sides of the pitch, yeah. And right now the discourse in Nigeria, because I've gone over there and delved into their side of the internet. A lot of the discussion is actually centering around Asisat Oshuala, who started, I believe, the first two matches of this tournament, was hooked off at halftime. And usually they looked better when she was sort of hooked off. And people were saying, usually they were sort of tailoring their formations to help her out. Six-time African Player of the Year in the past, obviously one of the greatest ever on the African continent, and very important even in the context of world football. And this match, they decide to reward Esther Okoronkwo, who was coming off the bench and looking convincing. Zua is another player that came on, but decided to start this match. And Esther delivers the first set piece. She scores the second goal from a lofted sort of diagonal ball. And then she also, I think, she wins the flick on for the third goal, and then the fourth one she's also providing, taking the set piece as well. So in my opinion, she was my woman of the match. But the one thing that really struck me was that the first four goals and four out of the five total goals all came in the air. Um, you think that's going to be something that Nigeria can maybe rely on in upcoming matches? It does seem like with a really good set piece coach, you could do some damage, I think, in world football, but also especially in this AFCON as well.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, set pieces always, incredible value if we can kind of get them right. Yeah, with Nigeria, I mean, the next opponents are South Africa, who, as you said, came out from a really tough battle against Senegal, and set pieces played a big part in that game. And I mean, they didn't always look super convincing, but they did deal with everything in the end. So I definitely don't think Nigeria will probably have as much success as they did against Zambia, who, I mean, again, as we said, they don't have as much just individual quality in defense. And there's definitely a clear weakness in the side there when you go from front to back. So, and I don't think they'll be able to kind of maybe score two or three goals again in a game from set pieces. But yeah, there's definitely potential for it. Again, we expect a close game against South Africa. Definitely potential. You get that one corner, one free kick right. That could be the difference, and that could take you to the final. So definitely something to follow.
Yeah, a quick look at the stat sheet shows that actually Zambia had more possession of the ball, but 7-0 shots on target for the Nigerian Super Falcons to the Zambian Copper Queens. Yeah, and just like my final thoughts, just again looking at it from the goalkeeper to the defense, I think you had a great point about Nadozi being a really good sweeper keeper. When in the rare times where the Nigerian defense was maybe beaten by Banda's pace and behind, she was there to sweep up everything. So I think, yeah, from goalkeeper up to the strikers, that was the most impressive team performance I think I've seen in this tournament so far. Shall we move to Morocco versus Mali?
Let's go.
Okay, can you give me a little bit of color? Because you're at the stadium. What did you see? What did you smell? What did you hear? What was it like going to that match?
No, it was really an electric atmosphere. I mean, I got there very early. I got there to watch the Nigeria Zambia game as well from the stadium. So when I got there, it was pretty empty. But I think just the images going into the stadium for me kind of almost encapsulate the vibe around this Wafcon, if you will, because so the Olympic Stadium in Rabat is out to the west of the city. It's in an area around what they call the green belt, where I mean they have obviously a lot of greenery as you expect, and also a few of these venues, right? But when you get there, the first thing you see, on the one side we have the Olympic Stadium and a sports complex. On the opposite side of the road, the first thing you see is an ongoing construction project for what I was told is a railway station. So as I said, this is out to the west of the city. It's not really well connected to the central areas. So what they're doing is they're building a rail station right almost opposite the stadium, and that'll obviously be able to serve fans for the tournaments. Obviously, the World Cup is the main thing coming up in 2030. So on the one side you see that, then you come here on the opposite side of the road. There's obviously the Olympic Stadium. It's not really. It's probably not the first thing you see on the side, even because there's the Mullah Abdullah Stadium complex,
It
which
looks
is
very, it's in the background. You can see it from certain camera angles. Elephant and mouse, sort of. Yeah.
exactly, and I got an image there because from the press box, it's you see the pitch, and exactly behind it is the stadium renovation project going on. In fact, there are cranes, and there are people working as the match was going on. There's some people welding while the match was on. So I think that really encapsulated the tournament for me, because it's like, obviously there's this major tournament happening, but really most of the country, all the big stadiums, pretty much all the big cities, the main thing that's going on are these renovation projects for the AFCON, the men's AFCON, and obviously the 2030 World Cup. So that was like the first thing you kind of saw. And then obviously as the match grew closer, we really had big swarms of fans coming in. I mean, I
Sorry,
wasn't
what
here.
kind of fans? What kind of fans? Are we talking men, women, families, all kinds?
All kinds really. It was, yeah, a really good mix. Obviously, I would say like 95% plus Moroccan. Like it was just a very small Malian contingent on like one corner. But yeah, all kinds of fans, families. I would say, yeah, more than anything, families probably. And yeah, very big crowd outside the stadium. I mean, I wasn't here for the final group stage game, but I heard from some people that basically the stadium was over capacity, and they had to like stop people from entering at one point before kickoff. And I felt that probably would have happened here as well, because last I checked, like half an hour before kickoff, the stadium was pretty much full from what I could see, and there were definitely too many people in lines waiting outside. I know they were like selling tickets as well over there, so maybe they were just waiting for those, but it's definitely a big demand. And again, I think that again speaks to the fact that I mentioned about like the renovation projects and stuff, because the Olympic Stadium just has a 21,000 capacity, whereas even at the last Wafcon in the semis and the final, they sold out, I think, 63,000, give or take. So it's just a third of the capacity. So there's definitely, I think, would be demand for more seats in Rabat, at least for the Moroccan games. But then yeah, like inside the stadium, it was an incredible atmosphere. Really loud fans right from like the warm-ups when the players came out, and when the match started, like every pass, every shot, they were super into it. And yeah, like throughout the first half, it was super lively. In the second, it kind of got a bit quieter. I mean, I think Morocco did play that way to kind of calm things down a bit and get control, which they did well. So kind of quietened down gradually, but yeah, it was a great atmosphere, and I think we'll see more of the same on Tuesday.
And on the pitch, when I didn't think Mali were poor per se, but I did think there was maybe a little bit of a gulf in quality in terms of technical quality, technique. I thought the Moroccans on the ball, whether it was Shibek, was maybe a little underwhelming. Although, as you pointed out in your article for the cutback, if we didn't say yet, you could go check that out on Substack. She did play an instrumental role in playing that ball to Uzraoui for the first goal. But then even like just watching Tegnaout, watching Uzraoui, watching Jaraidi, Mrabat, does seem like there's that everybody can play, everybody can put their foot on the ball and make the right pass and make a beautiful control. I'm thinking of a ball over the top from Uzraoui, controls it with her right foot in the air, brings it onto her left foot, curling effort. I thought just a little bit of a difference in technical quality, although Mali were quite good. What was your take of the first half?
Yeah, I think, obviously they conceded that early goal, Mali, just 7 minutes in, and their coach was speaking after in the press conference, and he was like, that was a very bad goal to concede, because it happened in a quite like a poor open moment. They were just exposed, and then even the keeper came out a bit kind of slightly indecisive, and then it was just a tap in. Like she didn't even make ready word for the finish. It was just an open net. So it was not ideal, obviously, way to start, especially when you consider the fans, right? The atmosphere, because Mali, obviously, all their other games, they didn't play in anything like this kind of a crowd, and definitely not such a crowd against them, basically. So with that in mind, I think they dealt with that setback quite well. They pushed hard after that. They applied some pressure, but as you say, like the Moroccan like technical ability was just so good, because as Mali stepped up to press high, especially like the midfield three, and then the attackers with their forward runs were just so good at releasing pressure, getting out of tight spaces, getting forward, and really preventing Mali from like building any like long spells of pressure. Like whenever they tried to step up, they would get hit back and then would have to drop back. So definitely the Moroccan quality shining through there. But yeah, like I do think Mali were able to do some at least like create some open situations. They had a good few attacks. Like even early on, they got their wingers into like one-on-one situations well in transition. Got a few good crosses in as well. But yeah, as you say, like the kind of final execution, the final ball in the final third, that was probably the difference in those opening exchanges, and obviously that proved to be the difference in the game. But yeah, I would say like I think, you know, Mali were obviously not the favorites, and they can definitely be proud of the performance and the fight they showed. But there's also clearly some stuff they need to work on if they want to get to the level which Morocco are at right now.
Yeah, definitely. It did seem, as you mentioned, that like Mali were in the game until that second goal. That second goal is where you could felt like a start of okay, now it's Morocco's, and it's one of those where it's just like a frustrating penalty to give up. Almost no need to nip at the heels there. But very well taken by Ibtisam Jraidi, that very beautifully taken penalty kick. So the match finishes 3-1. Morocco are through to the semifinals, of course. Second time in consecutive Wafcons that they make it to the semifinals. Do we even want to talk about Algeria versus Ghana? Um,
I look, if you have something to say, please do tell, because you know, like so I to the quarterfinal.
sorry, Neil. Can you repeat that? Can you repeat from? It
But
just broke up. Can you repeat from if you have something to say?
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, if you have something to say, go ahead. But for me, like I landed here in Morocco on early Sunday in Casablanca, and then so I just came to Rabat, just dumped my stuff at the hotel, and went off to the match. And before coming, I was considering whether I should take like the overnight train to Berkane and Ujda just to get to the other quarter, because you know obviously those are the last games there, and so I wouldn't get to see the stadiums and be there. But then I was like, nah, it's too much. I had a flight, and then I had to come to the bar and stay. I was like, let me not do it. And I was so glad when I was watching the game that I did not go, because I mean, what on earth would I have done over there, for 2 hours? Just be sitting at those guys passing the ball around, and just yeah, that's about it. That's what happened for 90 minutes plus the time. And yeah, I mean, I just said like before, it was quite predictable given the way Algeria played throughout the group stages. Like what, one goal in 3 games total scored, plus I mean none conceded, one scored. And Ghana as well. I think you could expect that to an extent too, because like all of their games weren't really super entertaining, right? I think they showed that and in this game as well, they showed that they can hurt you in transition if they get everything right. But similarly to, not entirely similarly, but on somewhat similar lines to Zambia, they can't really break down low blocks super well. And that's what Algeria basically did. Like at this, first half an hour or so, I'd say it was a little bit open, and Ghana were getting a little bit in transition. They were certainly getting forward a few times. They just lacked again in the final third, final passes, final actions. And then obviously they had that disallowed goal for a very minor offside. But I think that really summed it up, because it was obviously, I mean, the through ball to the strikers, who both the strikers really did excellent with those runs into the channels. But then like the first pass was miscontrolled, right? And then it went off to the left wing and then came back. And I think Stellan put the finish, which was a very good finish. But after that, I think at that point, Algeria were like, okay, enough of this. Like, let's just go back and close the full thing down. And that's what they did. Second half, like honestly, after like 2 minutes after halftime, I was like, yeah, we're going to extra time here. And then we went to extra time. Like, a little bit happened. I think Algeria did finally like push a little bit on the odd occasion. Had a couple of attacks, but nothing really came off them. The defenders did well on both sides to make some important tackles and challenges. And then yeah, like it was dead set for penalties. So not a great advertisement of the entertainment at Wafcon, this one, but at least we got some drama in the penalties.
Yeah, exactly. Algeria eliminated while not conceding a single goal in this tournament, scoring just the one. It would have been, I don't know what would have been more egregious, them being eliminated while not conceding a single goal, or them advancing to the semifinals just scoring one goal. I think both of those statistics are kind of crazy. But honestly, I've watched all of Algeria's matches. They don't look half bad, like technically, passing the ball out from, goalkeepers to defenders to midfielders. They do matriculate the ball up the pitch. It does seem though at times like they could be a little more direct. Like they almost feel like they have to like go through each of those lines every single time, and
Yeah.
as a result, they don't use. I mean, they're not really like effective in transition. They never catch the opponent's defense out of place. Um, but I do think that that's perhaps reflects a little bit of the personnel as well. I think they don't really have a dynamic winger or striker. They play with two technical attacking midfielders in Karshuni and Busaha. But yeah, overall, I think if you look at their entire tournament, there's no way you can sort of be angry with them being eliminated simply because they didn't do enough. They weren't brave enough, and they didn't do enough in the attacking third, really, to warrant them advancing to the semifinals. You have any other thoughts, really? I would just say one more thing. I don't think Algeria's far off. I think this coach, Farid Benstiti, is a coach that's very well known in French football. He's coached Paris Saint-Germain, he's coached Lyon, he's coached in China, as did Kim Lars, the Ghanaian coach, and they faced each other before, so they did know each other. And these were, I think we all predicted that this match would go to extra time. It was always going to be a cagey affair. But they have a good coach. They have, I think, decent technical quality. Obviously, they have a base with a good goalkeeper and some decent defenders as well. I think they're just missing maybe one or two pieces along the attacking line to really maybe make the push into a top five country on the African continent. But they're not ready just yet. Should we move on? Or anything else to say about Algeria Ghana? I don't think there is.
I think that's about it, honestly. I think you said a bit more than I'd be able to, so well done.
Okay, I'm going to lean on you a little bit for South Africa versus Senegal because I did have an eye on this match, but I also there was a lot of family over, so I was sort of back and forth, back and forth. But it did seem like a physical matchup. A lot of South African players sort of coming off or due to injury. Senegal, the attacking line, they have some very dangerous players. It was a 0-0, but it wasn't like an Algeria Ghana 0-0. There were some chances, I think, created from both sides. What was your take on the match?
Yeah, I mean, first half honestly wasn't super entertaining, to the point that I'd come back to my hotel then, and I decided to put some euros on for a bit of entertainment on the side, and yeah, I certainly got that. But yeah, like first half was also pretty cagey here. But you're right about the physicality. So Firdaus Munda, who's also covering the Wafcon for the cutback, she was at the game, and she was telling me like, these Senegal players are just so big. They look like double the size of the Banyana players. So yeah, that was definitely a big matchup there. And as you say, like, compared to uh, Algeria Ghana, which was like a dead set 0-0 from the start. But in this one, it did also boil down to set pieces a fair bit. Like I felt in the second half, both teams were pretty much largely reliant on their set pieces. Of course, South Africa did have a few more moments in open play, in those transitional situations, which you expect. I mean, on paper, when you look at it, they obviously have the better quality players, and yeah, similar to Nigeria in a sense that maybe they haven't always looked like super cohesive, but like at the end of the day, they do have people who can hurt you in just one moment, kind of thing. So they had a bit more threat that way, but it was like very reliant on set pieces in the second half from both sides. Senegal as well. I think they defended fairly well. They weren't like in their block 100% solid. Like they were done in behind a few times, but like the defenders made the individual tackles you need, and the keeper also definitely played her part. Was quite commanding, really. So I was impressed by her like cross claiming and the way she dealt with those balls. So yeah, on the whole, like I would say, a solid performance from Senegal. Also had a few chances themselves from set pieces later on, which came close. Like I think a couple very close to the crossbar as well. So could have gone either way, really. Definitely in extra time as well. There were more chances. I mean, it opened up more. South Africa had a couple penalty shouts. One which was very close and overturned by
What was your take on that one? It seemed like to me initially I thought penalty, and then as I think what the referee was saying was I want to see another angle because the angle that she was seeing was the same angle that we were seeing, and it almost seemed
yeah.
like the ball kicked up at the last second. So maybe the Senegalese defender got a toe on it, but maybe from another angle we could have seen that more clearly. And I think as it dragged on and on and on, and went into the third and fourth minute, she said, "Okay, look, if it's not this clear, if we only have this angle, I can't make the call." But what was your take on it?
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. Like, the ball definitely like moved, right? Like right before anyone like touched it. So the big question is, was it a touch from the Senegalese defender, or did it just like bob up
It could have
off
been the pit.
of the pitch?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, right? So like that's the main question. And yeah, like without that kind of information, like I think she gave it on the field. Obviously, it was offside then, but she gave the pen, like she pointed to the spot on the field. So yeah, if you think about it that way, then if you give the
Yeah, should have
decision
stuck to it then maybe.
and you don't have conclusive evidence, then yeah, you should probably stick to it. So I don't know, but like in the end, like I said, it doesn't matter so much because South Africa obviously got through on penalties. If they didn't, I think it probably would be a bigger talking point.
Yeah, definitely. Andile Dlamini, I thought was impressive in the penalty shootout. The South African goalkeeper
Yep.
definitely cemented her place. As I don't understand why she didn't start the second match of the group stages, but definitely cemented her place. I think as well. I think she always was considered one of the best African goalkeepers, but she keeps putting in big performance after big performance after big performance. Um, should we look ahead to the semifinals really quickly?
Yeah, I mean, just one thing I'll say about the penalties.
Please.
Like I thought the from both the takers and the keepers, there were some really high quality penalties in both shootouts, right? Like really well struck balls into the corners and keepers as well, really getting far. Like obviously Dlamini, as you say, excellent. Even in the Ghana game, like Cynthia Conlan, the way she got to like both the corners, really good. So very good standard there. I think that was good to see, especially because at the same time I was watching the Euros and the real nonsense happening with penalties there. So it was quite the contrast.
I just remembered the first French penalty from from Maher Mezahi. That was ridiculous. But yeah, even Ngazi, the Algerian goalkeeper, she guessed right on a few ways. I thought
Yeah.
maybe needed a little more conviction. She was like maybe a centimeter or two off.
Yeah, like
Maybe a little more
the thing
conviction
with
should have realized.
the thing with Conlan I noticed was she was taking a step very early. Like she was like as soon as the takers like looking down at the ball, she was gone to one side, and that's how she got to the corners really well. So that was I think an interesting distinction between the two keepers.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so very quickly, let's look ahead to the semifinals. We have Nigeria versus South Africa. If you don't know Neil, this is probably one of the biggest rivalries on the African continent. There's two sort of cultural poles of English-speaking Africa. Um, the Afro beats versus Amapiano. This is really like a big deal. And in women's football, these are also the two most successful sides. Banyana against the Super Falcons. I think I haven't seen a more impressive performance than Nigeria versus Zambia 5-0 this tournament. I don't think South Africa has been incredible so far, but at the same time, they're defending champions. How do you see this one going? If we're just going to give a very brief, let's say one paragraph, just like a few lines on the semifinal, how do you think it's going to go?
No, I think it's going to be very close. Like I think South Africa, obviously, as you say, haven't really looked super cohesive, but they have been able to do enough, like defensively, to not look porous, right? So I think they're going to be able to restrict Nigeria to a decent extent, and yeah, it's going to be very close. Like I wouldn't be surprised if it goes to extra time, but yeah, like you obviously have to give Nigeria a slight edge after that performance, and again, if they start with Esther up top and she can link up nicely like she did, I think they have more potential. But yeah, close game for sure.
Agree. And then the other match, I think there's maybe slightly more of a clear favorite. We have Morocco versus Ghana. Ghana, I don't think have looked entirely convincing, whether that's in the group stages or even in the quarterfinal against Algeria. Again, it's not easy to go up and play well against Algeria, as they're maybe the most negative team of the tournament. Morocco, on the other hand, at home, as we've already mentioned, they're going to benefit from all that kind of support. They're going to be looking to make it to the final and finally win this Wafcon. Um, and I thought they looked really, I think cohesive is the right word against Mali. How do you see this one working out?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously Morocco, as you say, very clear favorites. The one like way it might work in Ghana's favor is in that first half in the Morocco Mali game, we did see Morocco get opened up in transition at times. And that's basically like the only way Ghana are going to hurt them is in transition through their attackers. Like obviously Princess Malfo we know is excellent on the ball, excellent dribbler. So if she gets a bit of space, she can make something happen. Also have some good support around her. But yeah, like I think the main question really just is how kind of open are Morocco going to be? Like, are they going to kind of start more carefully, or are they just going to go for it? And how do Ghana deal with that? Because with Morocco, right, it's obviously they have like all the fans behind them and an incredible atmosphere. I think this time they also have like some kind of weight of pressure where they're expected to at least make the final,
Agree.
right? Like this is a different because last time obviously like their fans wanted to see them win, but it was more obviously they weren't quite as established, and so it was more of okay, like give your best see how far we go, and we're watching and we're supporting, and obviously they did go far. But now there is, you got to get to the final, and ideally you got to win as well. But at the very least, especially given the draw and the opponents, that's kind of like a minimum expectation almost. So there's that pressure as well. It'll be interesting to see how they deal with that, and if they feel it, especially if they don't get an early goal like they did against Mali, half an hour in, maybe at halftime, how do they deal with that kind of pressure? So I think it could be quite an interesting game.
I remember I wrote it down in my notes. In the 17th minute, Morocco was playing a short corner against Mali. They play, I think it's Tegnouts that's taking it. She puts it short. She gets the ball back. And I don't know, I forget what it was. She misplaced the pass or she was dispossessed or something like that. And Mali have a real chance to break. And before they get to the halfway line, there's 7 Moroccan players sprinting back and they're already behind the ball. So I was really impressed by some of the ways they've been coached, things like rest defense. But as you mentioned, Mali did at times open them up. So it's going to be curious to see if they work on that point tactically against Ghana. Sort of towing that line between taking the initiative, putting pressure on your opponent, and at the same time not leaving yourself open too much, right? I think it's something that a lot
Yeah.
of favorites sort of deal with at times, yeah. All right, Neil, anything else to add?
No, I think that's about it. Thank you very much for having me on. Really
No,
enjoyed
man,
with that, and
really
yeah,
happy I got to get you on. As I mentioned before, Neil, I think is one of the probably I really could count on my hand in terms of like global football journalists. He could talk about football in Asia. He could talk about football in Europe, North America, South America, Africa. So if you don't follow him, I'm going to put all of his social media links in the description below. And you could follow his coverage on the Cutback on Substack. I'll put a link to one of his latest articles in the description below as well. So thanks again, Neil, and we'll speak soon.